before, encounters between Israeli citizens and Christian clergy were marked by one increasingly common act: spitting. What was years before a secretive endeavor has become a brazen display in recent years. Spitting is now carried out openly, at clergy, at pilgrims, even at holy sites, often in broad daylight, in full view of bystanders and security cameras, without care or consequence. As mentioned before, this behavior, along with much else, worsened following the election of the current government. But in the second half of 2024, something shifted even further. According to Christian leaders, these incidents have not only increased in number but in aggression. Verbal harassment has further intensified, and now clergy speak of a climate that feels volatile and hostile. Testimonies collected by the Rossing Center describe a disturbing pattern. In places like the Armenian Quarter and Mount Zion, priests and nuns are harassed nearly every time they step outside. Harassment, spitting, physical attacking, cursing, defacement of holy sites, desecration and urination, and general disdain of Christianity has only gotten Armenian worse. Father Agan Gochian, who had a personal story that was a telling summary of the situation in Israel. He is a priest, and the Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem's chancellor, who says he's regularly attacked by groups of Jewish settlers. He recalled one instance in November of 2024, when he was headed to prayer. He was intercepted by a group of settlers who asked if he was Christian. They said to him, quote, "You know that you don't have a future here in the Holy Land. You're not going to continue to live here. This is our country. We are going to eradicate you." This is the word he used, said Father Agan. We are going to eradicate
Israeli forces were seen violently restricting and beating Christian worshippers on their way to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in occupied East Jerusalem, after placing arbitrarily heavy-handed restrictions on Easter celebrations, which Christian leaders believe is part of an ongoing Israeli policy to push them out of their homeland. And just a couple...
Now, this is a very delicate subject, so before I commence, I'd like to preface the whole thing by saying that I am a Zionist myself. But not for any BS religious reasons. No, it's because it's only right. You know, after all, these people are there. What would happen to them if there weren't any Israel? Also, if given a choice between Jews and Muslims, I'll choose the Jews hands down every time. Not to mention how Israel has 2,000 tanks, an Air Force second to none, and they can put 1 million men in the field. So I support Israel. This video only addresses this particular topic. Just this one, no more, no less. The Western press obsesses over the genocide in Gaza and the war with Iran, while Christian families in Israel are under attack and nobody's talking about it. There were 111 reported cases of attacks against Christians documented in the 2024 annual report by the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue. According to the report, most perpetrators appear to be the ultra-Orthodox and national religious communities. The majority of the victims are clergy and people wearing visible Christian symbols. The incidents that are able to be tracked barely scratch the surface of what happens. We do not doubt that there are many more cases we do not know of, said Hannah Benkowski, director of the Jerusalem Center for Jewish Christian Relations, one of the programs within the Rossing Center, an Israeli NGO that describes itself as an interreligious and peace-building organization. So right there, it's not saying that all Israelis are doing this crap. It's only the extreme Orthodox and ultra-national right-wing Jewish community. You know, the Likudniks, Netanyahu's bunch. I know I heard watched a rabbi giving a talk about a year ago, I guess, and he actually said Hitler wasn't wrong, he was just on the wrong side. He actually said that on camera, unabashedly, unapologetically. So, I don't know. I think there's a problem in Israel.
And one might say that, well, we expect to see radical groups in every faith tradition. And I say, of course, yes, that exists. The problem is when they go unchecked and they're never held accountable. Even when there are arsons, attacks on churches, oftentimes the complaint of the heads of churches in Jerusalem, the Catholics, the Orthodox, the Protestant, is that it seems that those who do these attacks are never held accountable. In fact, I think it was around 2 years ago when the heads of churches said in a statement that they feel there is a systematic attempt to empty Jerusalem of Christians. These are strong words. Look at that statement from the heads of churches. So the impression that it's flowery here for Christians is definitely not true. But beyond that, we have to look at the wider political spectrum, because
Now let's talk about Taiba. Father Bashar Fawadla has been watching his town, the last all-Christian town on the West Bank, steadily get boxed in, gutted economically, and turned into an unsafe free-for-all. We're talking militant attacks and iron gates blocking the roads. What's happening in Taiba has become so incredibly hostile that local families are now packing up and leaving. But the really scary part is that this isn't just about one town. Father Fawadla is warning that what's happening in Taiba is actually part of a much bigger agenda to completely squeeze Christians out of the region. That comes from Revolver News, published by a Jew, by the way. And here's a tweet about it from National Conservative. Taiba is an all-Christian village of about 1,500 in the West Bank. It is home to the famous Taiba Brewery. Armed Jewish settlers rampaged through the village, throwing Molotov cocktails at cars and homes. IDF allegedly supported the terrorists and shot multiple Christians. One of the things I read that they're doing is settlers will come up and they'll squat on Christian land. A yard, a monastery, a church, whatever. They'll pitch tents and set up living on that land adversely to the owner. Then when the owners go to court and try to get them evicted off the land, the court sides with the settlers and just gives the land to the squatters. It's a tactic that they're doing all over the place, apparently.
When Trump says that Israel is one of the great democracies in the world, I would say that's the biggest bullshit I've ever had.
We're here in Bethlehem, home to an ancient Palestinian Christian community, to hear what they have to say about Christians in the West supporting Israel, Donald Trump's move to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and to see what life is really like here for Christians living in the occupied West Bank.
I always try to tell my child that we don't hate Israelis, but we hate what they are doing to us. My name is Marwan Harb. I'm a Christian living in Palestine, Bethlehem. When I hear that Christians in the West are helping Israel, thinking that they are helping Christians in Palestine, I think they're mistaken. Israel is who to blame. They took everything, man. They took all your life since you were a child.
There's understanding between Christians and Muslims that live here. There's a lot of differences as well.
And who care about us, the Muslim Palestinian? They care more than the Christian.
What happens to anyone who speak against the Israeli government here? If they will notice that there's someone might make a threat for them, they will come in less than 10 minutes and take him away and will be in jail.
Some of the most basic rights, human rights, are not given.
This is a story you might remember about an Israeli sniper shooting some Christian women in Gaza. An Israeli military sniper shot and killed 2 women inside the Holy Family Parish in Gaza, according to the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem. The mother and daughter were walking to the sisters' convent, the Patriarchate said, when gunfire erupted. One was killed as she tried to carry the other to safety, it added. 7 others were also shot and wounded in the attack at the complex, where most of Gaza's Christian families had taken refuge since the start of the war, according to the Patriarchate, which oversees Catholic churches across Cyprus, Jordan, Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. No warning was given, no notification was provided. The statement continued, they were shot in cold blood inside the premises of the parish where there are no belligerents. Pope Francis himself condemned the deaths and brought it out to the whole world. Now, these women were clearly on the church grounds. They clearly were Christians, and they were clearly women. Women aren't Hamas fighters, but boy, they sure were murdered.
Israel is God's chosen people, always have been God's chosen people, always will be God's chosen people.
In my last video, I walked through Bethlehem's walled-off streets and met Palestinian Christians fighting to stay on their land. But I kept thinking about how some of Israel's biggest supporters back home are not necessarily American Jews, but evangelical Christians.
Most Christians will tell you, well, we love Israel because God says, I will bless those who bless my people.
So why do American evangelicals support a state that directly hurts Palestinians, including their fellow Christians?
You have my sisters and brothers who are supposed to be my support, actually doing all their best to support the ones who are oppressing us.
Now let's talk about Bethlehem. In 1948, Bethlehem had 10,000 Christians. It was an entirely Christian town, city. Today, estimates suggest around 3,000 to 4,000 Christians remain in the city itself, a significant drop from the 20,000 to 25,000 in the mid-20th century. The Israeli separation wall, constructed starting in 2002, encircles much of Bethlehem, isolating it from Jerusalem 6 miles away and restricting movement. This had severed economic and cultural ties as many Christians worked or had family in Jerusalem. For example, the wall cut off 70% of Bethlehem's agricultural land, per UN reports. The land was then taken and confiscated by settlers. So they make a wall around it so that you can't move in or out freely. You have to have a special permit to leave. And then all the land these people owned outside the wall just got taken, just got grabbed. I think I read or heard Bethlehem proper is now only about 20% Christian, 15%. But I think it's plain to see that elements in Israel see Christians no differently than they see Muslims, which, you know, that kind of galls me a little bit, because if it weren't for Christians, there wouldn't even be an Israel. If it weren't for Christians supporting Israel over the last 70 years, 75, Israel would have gone under a long time ago. And then they come and treat our people like that. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you, man. People who do that, they're just unprincipled haters. That's just all there is to it. They're just haters.
The International Court of Justice has asked Israel to tear down that wall because it goes so deep into Palestinian territory, a land grab.
So I'll say that Christian Zionism in general is a very colonial way of reading the Bible, and also a very white supremacist type of viewing of the Bible.
It becomes easier to oppress the bad ones because they deserve it, because they brought it upon themselves. We can build a wall and lock them on the other side because they are the ones who are enemies of democracy and freedom, whereas ironically all we're asking for is our freedom.